Have you got your tickets to the largest music festival in Eastern Kentucky? The Alley Fest is returning Labor Day weekend. That's August 29th, 30th, and 31st. And this year it's bigger and better than ever before. On Friday, see Them Dirty Vandals, Zoe Howard, John Foster, Slater Nelly, and TikTok sensation Maddox Batson. Saturday features Brady Robinson, Troy Burchett, Jordan Smart, Wicked Peace, Jack Marion, Tyler Hood, Rachel Bayman, Luke Trimble, Abby Hamilton, Grayson Jenkins, American Idol winner Noah Thompson, and Nicholas Jamerson and the Morning Jays. And on Sunday, we have Brady McCown, Emma Hansman, John Thomas Moore, Moonlight Mile, Braden Mullins, Corduroy Brown, B. Taylor, our buddies the Kentucky Headhunters, Cole Chaney, and three-time Grammy Award winner Old Crow Medicine Show. Alley Fest has a new home at Archer Park in the Star City, Prestonsburg, Kentucky. This year, the Alley Fest offers on-site camping options, including primitive camping, car camping, and RV spots. All camping is walking distance to the showgrounds. Tickets and camping passes are going fast, so get yours today and don't miss this unbelievable lineup. For tickets, VIP passes, camping passes, and more information, visit www.alleyfestky.com. That's www.alleyfestky.com. Welcome back to Behind the Shed. We hope you're enjoying our series. Today we have Russ Zavitson, Harold Shedd, Wade Smith, and our special guest, renowned music producer and engineer who has worked with some of the top artists across country, rock, and pop, Mr. Ed Seay. Let's get to it. This is Behind the Shed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey. Well, this is a really special day because we have a special guest that has made himself known in Nashville, Tennessee, and other parts of the music industries around a lot of towns, but especially in Nashville because of the uniqueness and the things that he is able to do with recordings. And I'll just get to this part of it and then we'll go from there. But having known Ed and had the honor of working with him over the years and or being where he was working, and he always does the work and then he would give me credit. But if you think you're recording and you think you've got it as good as you can get it, then let Ed Seay do the final mix, and you can then say, well, I have taken it to the ultimate.
Amen.
That's such a nice.
That's the guy we've got with us today. And Ed, welcome to the podcast, and we love the fact that you're here with us.
Well, thanks.
Amen.
I'm glad to be here. That's high praise. So don't know if I'm not worthy.
You are. You're worthy. Yes.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. And I know you were in Atlanta for some time, but what year and what brought you to Nashville, Tennessee?
Well, when I graduated from University of Georgia, and I didn't want to be a music major there because they didn't have commercial music stuff that we were listening to on the radio or anything. It was the choices were music education, music performance, or music theory, which education means teaching high school and elementary band, and I didn't want to do that necessarily. And then performance means you can play in an orchestra. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And the third was composition, writing music that I was not hearing on the radio. It wasn't what I grew up listening to. So I said, okay, well, what else is creative? I know, journalism. So I became a journalism major and got out of school, copywriting, that kind of stuff. So I went to look for a job. Finally, my parents says, hey, why don't you go get a job? And so I went to several ad agencies. There were a lot in Atlanta. And so I looked around, and they'd say, well, no, we really don't. Finally, one guy said, the head of the creative director says, I'm seeing this Prince stuff, but I'm listening to this music that you brought in. You need to get to a recording studio. And I said, thank you, you're correct. So off came the tie and went to a recording studio. Actually, one that I had about a year and a half before for a school project done a little mock brochure on. It's a place called Master Sound down on Spring Street. Of course, it's not there anymore. But so I walked in. I said, I just graduated. And I don't know anything about recording, but I'm a really good musician, and I need a job. He said, well, he said a guy just left this past Wednesday, went back to Birmingham. So maybe this will work out. He said, I got to tell you, it's unlimited hours, weekends too, and $100 a week. That's before taxes. And so I said, great, I'm your guy. So I went in and started there, and started it. They had two studios, a production studio where you would do voiceovers, commercials. Today it's Sears, come down and buy a refrigerator, that kind of stuff. And so I started out assisting there and then working on commercials there. But at night, the music studio was in the back, and they were doing, they'd done all kind of stuff, Mighty Clouds of Joy, gospel. They'd done pop records. In fact, they were working on Lobo, which was, his name was Kent Lavoie, but his stage name was Lobo, and they were working on I'd Love You to Want Me, which was a
big hit record.
Giant hit record worldwide. And a couple others. So after my shift, and anytime I could, I would go back and sit there, and I was the first to show and the last to go, because I wanted to see. I said, this is what I want to do. I figured it out, and so it worked out really well. I was there for about 2.5 years, but then an opportunity opened up across town at another studio called Web 4 Studios, and it was all the recording wing of Bang Records. Now, Bang Records started in Atlanta. It started in New York. Burt Burns. Some people don't know his name, but they know his songs. He wrote Hang On Sloopy, Cry Cry Baby, Twist and Shout, Piece of My Heart. He was really a songwriting
talented guy. Yeah,
titan, and he was great. And he had Bang Records up there in New York, and it was a split off of Atlantic. Originally, Wexler and the two Erdogan brothers, Nestle and Ahmet. And he was Bert, and they were all, and so he said, look, I'm doing a lot of the work here. I'm producing a lot of these records, writing a lot of the songs. I want to do my own offshoot. I want to, and so they said, okay. So he started that, and the publishing company was Web 4. Web was the last names, Wexler, Erdogan, Burns, and there were 4 of them.
Web 4.
And the label was Bang Records, B-A-N-G, Bert, Ahmet, Nestle, and Gerald Wexler. Mm-hmm. So he was up there, and he had Neil Diamond on the label. Yep. He had the Strange Loves. He had Hang On Sloopy by the McCoys, Rick Derringer, and Van Morrison, Brown Eyed Girl, and all those. So he was hot as a firecracker as a record guy. He also had a congenital heart problem from birth, and so he died at 39. And so he then his wife Eileen Burns was at home with 3 kids, and so it became her label. And all these artists says, I'm out of here. What? She's the president of the label, and so they left, and so it kind of put the label in turmoil. Really, everybody left, and giant lawsuits between some of the artists and where they ultimately went. And so then she moved to Atlanta and married a fellow that was promotion man for White Whale Records, a guy named Eddie Bisco. So they became they started Bang Records up again and Web 4. So I went to work there. That had opened up. They'd been there for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. She bought the studio that Chips Moman had from who originally was in Memphis doing all the big stuff with Elvis, and box tops were cut down there at his studio, and
I didn't know that. Wow.
A lot of things. And so he was so hot. He was one of the hottest producers in the world at that point, and he wanted to move to Atlanta. So he moved to Atlanta, and with his rhythm section, Gene Chrisman and Reggie Young, and all of a sudden got ice cold as a producer. Just
I didn't know.
Ice. Nothing worked. So he said, I'm leaving. I'm going to sell this studio. Eileen said, I'll buy it. So she bought it because now she's a label, doesn't have a studio, buys that studio. And then they all go back to Memphis. Reggie goes to Nashville and becomes Reggie Young that we know and love.
One of the most famous session
One
players
of the best,
in
you
history. Yeah.
know. In fact, Reggie, my first session was Reggie was on one of the sessions we were working on. It was more about that in a second.
We hope you're enjoying the show. This episode is sponsored by PopChevy.com, Wild Bill Fireworks, and the Kent Rose Foundation.
But anyway, so I'm over there, and I'm working there, and it was a label that really hadn't had any hits yet. Paul Davis was one of the acts that she had signed. He had one song called Ride 'em Cowboy, and it got to number 37. Great record, and made a minor impact, but 37 in the charts is not changing the world or anything. And there was another young guy, young singer that was awesome, named Peebo Bryson, and he'd never had a record and out, and he was down there. And so I'm at the label, and we're all kind of in boot camp down there, you know, and I'm helping them record stuff, and worked on Peebo's first album, and it didn't have any big hits, but he was unbelievable singer, just incredible. And Paul was an artist and had worked along, and not a whole lot had been happening. We did one album, had a few things, and at that point he was getting tired of being an artist. He loved writing songs, and he had a great voice, just a dynamite voice, but he just got tired of. He was from Mississippi, and he just got tired of. And he's living in Atlanta, of course, and got tired of doing that. He said, "I just want to write songs." So after that album that I'd worked on with him, the first one, nothing really happened with. We'd see each other every day at work, and and he'd say, "Man, I got a song I want you to hear." So he came over to my apartment and played the song called "I Go Crazy," just on the roads that were Wurlitzer or something sitting there.
Hey, I got to say real quick, that hold your thought. That song, that held the record for being on the charts.
It did.
The longest single in history for like 30 years, wasn't it? 20
Well,
years?
there was a record that had been, Johnny Mathis had the record Wonderful, Wonderful.
Yeah.
Years ago, and it had been in the charts for like 39 weeks. I think the dates, I'm not sure. It was about 39, and so it had been the record holder until "I Go Crazy" came out, and it started and just kept moving up the charts, and so it was on the charts for 40 weeks. So for about 2 or 3 weeks, we had, or 2 or 3 years actually, we had. I was in the Guinness Book of World Records.
And it was some crazy number,
And then we got beat after 3 or so years.
Let me go back to your story. I'm sorry, I just had to say that.
Well, we got finally beaten by Soft Cell with Tainted Love. They beat us. But anyway, so we're working there, and we didn't have a giant, unlike Nashville, unlike Muscle Shoals, unlike New York or LA, there were a lot of talented people, but most of them were rock bands or pop bands, but there wasn't a session pool to work with. So consequently, Paul and I did most of that record. He played Rhodes and played some synth, and a guitar player that owed me a favor, Kenny Mims, rest in peace, but he was a great player. I'd done a favor for him, so I said, "Hey, do me a favor, come play a little guitar on this thing." So he did a few chords and played guitar, and then and I played bass on the record, and we got a great piano player. Alan Feingold was an incredible pianist, so he played acoustic piano on it, and that was pretty much the basis of the record. He sang lead, I sang some backgrounds, and he sang some backgrounds, Paul, and so it was mostly just me and Paul, really. And so finally we went to New York and put strings on it. Finally Eileen heard this thing before I go to New York. He hears it and he says, I think this would be good for Lou Rawls to follow up You'll Never Find. Boom, 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 boom. She said in her New York accent, you ain't giving that to Paul. You ain't giving that to Lou Rawls. Get back there and make me a effing record. So we went back there and finished working on the record. I went to New York and we knew an arranger up there, Michael Zager. He was famous for a song, Let's All Chant. And he's done a great arranger, done a lot of things. So anyway, he put some strings on it. I come back. We still don't even have drums on it yet. So it's not really, we'd cut the thing to, it wasn't a drum machine. It was before that. This was like 76 or so. So it was a beat box that we, boom, 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 so we cut to that. That was our drum machine. And we didn't even have drums. And Paul said, well, I know this drummer, because he was from Mississippi, talking real slow, and Meridian, Mississippi. So he said, I know this drummer back in Mississippi. And it was James Stroud. So he flies James
another
in.
famous legend.
Extremely, so he flies in and jumps on the kit and immediately becomes the best drummer I've ever heard, because he was great. And he'd been playing sessions in Shoals and Malaco, actually.
Malaco, yes.
And so he was over there, and so he comes up and plays the drums on the thing. So then I mix it with Paul. Paul and I are sitting there. I just mix it. 16 track. We only had 3 tracks left for drums, so that was the drums. No automation. And so mixed it. It had one extra chorus on the end, And so it was like, well, this is a little too long, so chop the chorus out like we all had to do with tape. You say, okay, I'm going to cut from right here to ka, or the snare, and then you go, ow, mark, and then you go down to the next spot where it needs to end that chorus and start another one. Crack, same thing, put them together, slice. Russ, you know this. We've all done that. Harold's done it too. I mean, and you put the slicing tape, rub it in, hit it. Okay, it works. And so then that was the record. So then I had to fly up. There wasn't any place to master records in Atlanta, so I flew up to Nashville, went to Glenn Meadows up at Master Phonics, and he masters the thing. And then I had to fly back, and they cut the parts and got him, and I started, I think we were using Terre Haute, Indiana, CBS pressing, I think. They pressed the records, and off it goes, and sets that record. So that was the beginning, really, of a great relationship with Paul and myself.
And so at that point, did you have any idea or think, boy, I think we're going to have a hit record here? Because it was your first one, really.
This was my first big hit, and we knew it was great. We knew the record was great. We knew his vocal was great. Everything was good, but you don't ever absolutely know. But we had a pretty good idea. But it was taking so long, but it finally got on up there, and yeah, it was exciting times. And actually, Paul produced that record. I mean, I had input. I was helping. I was playing, but he was the producer, and because he had worked with Chips Moman before, he'd been to New York and seen Barry up there and Greenwich and those people when Eileen was up there. So he, that was the start of it. And then from then on, we did several other records, several other hits. Cool Night, which was it's on Yacht Rock Radio right now. Yeah. And several other things. Just had a good run with him. 65 Love Affair, and it was all fun. So about 84, I leave Nashville because it was like Paul had already moved up here, and I felt like I'd kind of hit the ceiling because there were no session players, there were no cartage companies, and there were no record companies. And that's the key. New York, L.A., Nashville, that were my choices. Where am I going to move? Well, I'd worked in New York, liked it a lot. L.A., I'd worked there, but it was more like, well, we'll have your people talk to our people. We'll figure this out, and we'll get together. New York is like, hey, are we doing business? Are you in? Are you out? What are you doing? But I said, well, Nashville is a lot closer, and I think I know one or two people there, so that's where I went to Nashville. Got up here in '84, and started. The first stuff I started in Nashville was actually for 2 weeks. I'm sitting around. I'd made a few calls, and I figured, well, maybe I'm the only guy that's never gonna actually get a job up here in Nashville. And after about 2 weeks, a fellow called from a Christian record producer that was working with Sandy Patty and Steve Green, really some of the top echelon at that time of Christian stuff. So he says, hey, you want you don't get a country drum sound, do you? And I said, well, I guess I get a pop drum sound. I came from Atlanta. And he said, well, great. Can you work on a record starting next Tuesday? So I worked on about 2 years of that, and then kind of moved on into the country market, and have been here ever since. Yeah. I'll take a breath now.
Yeah, that's okay. That's good.
That's great. About how many gold and platinum records have you mixed?
Oh gosh, this is tough.
I know it's got to be on up there.
I've done a lot, but I'm so bad when you say, well, name them, and I'm sitting there.
Well,
my gosh, I can't.
You couldn't name them all.
No, I can't remember.
No.
But actually, I've been fortunate to have had.
It's got to be hundreds.
Well, it's a pretty high number.
I know it's more than dozens.
It's more than dozens, but it's some were pop. Some were R&B. While we were in Atlanta, there was an R&B group before I moved up called Brick, and we'd done several records of R&B records on this group Brick that were real funky. Daz and Ain't Gonna Hurt Nobody and a few other things. Yeah. And then I moved up here, and then the some of the Christian records went gold, platinum, and then the country stuff. I was lucky to get to Nashville right as Nashville was not in its highest peak. It was kind of on the lower peak, and then all of a sudden 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, here comes Shania, that signed by you, Garth, everybody just exploded then, and so all of a sudden country music, the bloom was on the rose, and so everything was just working great, and that was a real serious period, and that's where a lot of the big records came from. Martina McBride and Colin Ray and of course during that period all the Alabama stuff you were doing. I wasn't involved in that, but it was, and of course when I got here it wasn't too long. Well, once I'd gotten into the country thing, it wasn't long before the Billy Ray effect hit, and it was like, wow. Yeah. First record, how many albums, what is that? 15 million or something?
It is now.
I mean,
it's close to 25 now, but
it
was
That's
like
great.
15 in no time.
We got a 7 million plaque in like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, that's
everybody.
Not
to mention the singles.
And then 9 million, and then I don't.
That was. I mean, the town was just exploding then. It was great. It was like, it's true. I think that a rising tide raises all boats.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody was saying, well, I don't like a lot of the stuff I'm hearing on the radio, but I like this country stuff. Let's start listening to that. And it was just a great time.
Yeah.
You mentioned James Stroud, and I met James while he was working at Malaco in Jackson, Mississippi, and he played on one of our biggest records ever, 80s Ladies.
Oh,
that's James playing drums on that record.
Yeah,
KT Osmond, huge.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, he's on that album, and let's see, Eddie Bears is on it, and
Then Larry?
Larry London.
Larry.
is
Oh,
on it.
man.
Yeah.
Larry was still alive.
Yeah.
And Larry was so great,
He was
too.
incredible.
He was-
Yeah, loved Larry.
Yeah. You know, you're an unusual animal to me in a lot of ways because there's great engineers. There's been great engineers in town. You name them too. We know who the people we love the most and everything. And then there's great producers. There aren't a whole lot of producers that are great engineers too that do that. That's kind of where you started. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember when Tony Hazelman and I started making records, and we, you know, of course we knew you, we were friends already. You know, and we were talking about, you know, getting you to mix that first stuff. And Tony said, you know, the thing about Ed's records is I can always hear everything. Everything's in a place. It's like somebody thought about where they put it and carved it out so it sticks out and everything. And I said, you know, you're right. And to me, the other thing, and this is way beyond it, most people out there, but the way you use compression with EQ was different than everybody else. Your records just sounded bigger and bolder. You know, it's like we were talking about you being on last night. Harold said, "Who do we got tomorrow?" And I said, "Ed." And he made his famous statement again. You know, about if you think you can get better. And he said, "Boy, you know," he said, "Man, that Pam Tillis record, maybe it was Memphis. That's the one. Maybe it's Memphis. I always say that. That's a '90s, early '90s piece.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things have a sound that's a little different. It still sticks out today. That record is just, of all those records you made, it's still. And I have more people, when we talk about you, talk about that record. It was just.
That was a dynamite little record. It was a big record. For one thing, I was over at Treasure Isle, and because somehow one of the jobs I was doing over there, I kind of stuck over there for early on, and big live room, and Paul Lime was the drummer, and he was a hitter, you know, like Stroud. He would hit those things, and when I moved up here, the drum sounds in some cases were polite and small,
Right.
And so when you get big hitters like that and you're in a live room, I mic'd up the room, and it sounded exciting because that's what it sounds like when you walk into a room and you hear a band playing and it's alive, you know. And so that was great. That was fun, and it's always great to have a soprano sail over the top of the record because you can have a lot of stuff going on hitting hard, but her voice was just on top of the record and sailing over all the, you know, rather than down in the middle, it was way up. And so that was a fun record. It was kind of a lot of reverb. Reverb goes in style and out of style. And so it was in style right then.
Yeah,
well,
man.
it was for me.
What was your Ampex reverb we keep talking about?
The old Ampex 601.
Yeah.
It looked like a piece of Samsonite luggage. Remember that?
You used that on some Alabama records.
Yeah,
You go,
I had
"What
it
is
on the
that?"
first three Alabama records.
Because nothing else sounds like that.
Well, it was you could get slap back that was unlike anything
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey,
But
sure
that came
worked.
straight out of broadcasting. too.
That's right. That's right. Ampex. See, Ampexes were still some of the best tape machines
Yes.
sounding ever.
Oh yeah.
Great name.
And you did you were in broadcast, weren't you?
Yeah, for 14 years.
Was that after or before or while you were
Before.
playing mandolin and
Yeah,
stuff?
that's really how I got started, was in radio.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that was.
and now, after listening to you today, I can see to some degree why you could take the mediocre and make it superior to anything else. And I mean that.
I tried. Thanks.
But a lot of people, and people ask me, "Do you play a thing?" And I just say I thought I did until I moved to Nashville.
I say that about guitar. I thought I was a guitar player. Now I realize I'm a guitar owner up here.
Yeah, I thought I played a mandolin in my life, but not really, you know.
Yeah.
But we're so happy that you could be with us today. We've been looking forward to it.
I appreciate it. One of my sayings is that they all can't be hit records, but they can sound like hit records.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
And And
you can get that part right.
Yeah, we can at least get somebody's attention. And if they don't like the record or the artist or something, well, we can't control that, but we can make it sound good.
Yep.
Well, and I have to tell you, I had a couple of acts that I thought were potentially big time, and you made the records sound big time.
Wow, thanks.
It never got to the stage that we thought it would, but not because of the records. They were so great.
Man, I was going to mention one. I hate to cut you, but before I forget this, one of my favorite things that y'all did that didn't do what we hoped it would do. I didn't even have a song on the record. I just loved the record. Was that Shelley Wright record?
Yeah,
Shelley Wright.
I loved that record, man.
Some of that was good.
Yeah,
that was a good record. I liked
And
that
we
record.
we had a couple other things that had exceptional songs, 2 or 3 songs on each record, and a guy named Davis.
That was my next one,
I
Davis
know.
Daniel. Yeah.
And also a guy named Clinton Gregory. And you took that record from here to there,
that was when I was thinking about the great Reggie Young, who the first time I worked with him, I showed up and he was on the session and he was playing guitar, and Briggs was on it too, David Briggs, again, R.I.P. But Reggie was there. There was one song that we started into. It was good. It kind of fell apart in one little spot, and I said, well, Todd Colross was backing me up. I said,
at the
back
Music
up.
Mill, yeah.
At the Music Mill. We cut it at Music Mill. And I said, back up, turn up the click. I said, hey, let's punch in there again. And so we did it again, and it kind of fell apart there again. And I said, hey, can you hear the click? And the drummer said, well, I turned off the click. And I was like, oh, okay. So we finally pieced it together. Spent too long on that. I didn't have an intro lick. I didn't have a turnaround or a solo or an outro. And I said, well, guys, I got to move on. I don't know what I'm going to do, but we've got some other stuff we got to get to. We can't just spend all day on this. And Reggie back in the corner, he said, hey, don't sweat it. I'll hang over afterward. I'll fix it up. And I went, wow. Now here's a double scale player, one of the best in the country, legend. And he's saying, man, don't sweat it. I'll hang around.
I'll take care of it. Oh, man.
Reggie. Oh, and I tell him that story. I would tell him every time I would see him, But the Music Mill, that was and the other room of the Music Mill. I spent a lot of time over there.
Yeah, the B room.
Some of that.
That was your room.
That was your room.
A lot of time I spent on the Shelley stuff. Also the some of the Ricochet stuff over there.
Yeah,
that was some fun stuff. I think Daddy's Money, didn't we mix that over there?
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Might have,
but several of the things had that API.
Great sound and console.
And that was a fun period. We worked hard on that stuff.
So Ed, Mr. Analogy Man, I used to call him. So the first mix you ever did for me was we had mixed the first half of this record for a Jeff Copley album. And I wasn't happy with the way it sounded, and I really wanted you to do it. And so you took the album home and listened to what we had on. Got back, said, I think we need to. It's not all bad. We need to kind of strategically bomb your mixes a little bit. And I went, I don't want to talk about bombing my mixes. And we laughed about that. And you remixed that stuff. Oh my God, it came alive. That was the first time I'd seen that happen.
Oh man,
was that on Evergreen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the process for people who don't know? Like, you record at the studio, and then you take that to a different studio, and that's where he mixes it, or how does that happen?
Well, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. But
sometimes it's all done in one studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But really, that run of Alabama records was recorded and overdubbed and mixed there at the mill.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Every time I drive by the mill, I think of all the good times.
Yeah,
we
about
talk
too.
that on here.
Yeah.
And but sometimes they'll say, well, I'd like this other guy to mix this. And so you take the ingredients and you put it together and bake a different cake, and maybe a different perspective. Sometimes it's, there was a record I did called I Fell in Love with Carlene Carter.
I love that record.
If you remember Martha Sharp, who was the A&R woman at at Warner Brothers, and she said, well, she called and said, Ed, I've had everybody on two coasts mix this thing, and we can't fall in love with it. We don't like it. And I said, well, okay, I'll give it a try. I can't fail any worse than they did. And in that record, it was different. There was a whole Albert Lee playing guitar and a lot of drum. I can't remember who the drummer was. A lot of stuff going on, and very catchy song. And so I used the approach more like the Rolling Stones, whereas if the band was playing in here and I'm standing at the door and I kind of open the door a little bit and it's all just coming through I said, that's the perspective I'm going to use. And they loved it. One of the guys was working on the kick drum, trying to get a great kick. It wasn't about the kick drum. It was about the song and the singer, and that's what it always is about.
Sure. Another time you did that, and you've probably forgotten this now, but Tony Hazelton and I were working with the Kinleys.
Yes.
And there was a big TV show on called Touched by an Angel. And so they asked us to go in and cut one side, which was the big single off the album. As a matter of fact, we cut this song, and we tracked bouzouki, which is an acoustic instrument, like a baritone mandolin, I guess you'd call it. And we had Biff play through it. It's the first time we'd ever used it, and it sounded really cool. Well, there was a big hole in the middle of phrases in the choruses, and we had like a guitar kind of hitting and just kind of holding across it, and the bouzouki's were doing ba-da-da each time doubled. And I'd forgotten they were even there. We went over to hear the first mix, and Ed's taking everything away but them right there, and it's sticking up, ba-da-da, real loud. I'm going, oh, my God, I forgot those were even there. And it's the most featured thing on there. And it's the coolest thing ever. I'm sure you remember that, but it was just way cool. We never thought that when we were making that record. Cool, man. It's very cool. Yeah. So that's, again, engineers are supposed to put together. Sometimes they do that, and they come in and they go, well, let's pull this out and do that. And it's a different sounding record. I mean, completely sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. That was a case of.
So is that why sometimes when you hear a song on certain albums, you'll hear the singing is over, like really loud, or sometimes you can barely hear the singing and the instruments. That's the mix, right?
That's the mix.
That's what happens with the mix, the balance, and the placement of everything, and and you're talking about being able to hear everything, and I always, for the most 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I try to approach a mix as if I'm in the 12th row of the concert hall and I'm seeing the band. And so I'd say, well, there's a guitar there, and there'd be a guitar over there, and drums are here, and the bass is they're in the middle, and singers out here, maybe the back, maybe the horns, maybe the fiddles back there. Try to visualize like, oh, this was a great show. Sorry you missed it, but here's what it sounded like from my, and try to make it so that it's not just a blur of doom.
Yeah, early on they would put the backup singers over here, the strings over here, but all of that needs to be behind the singer.
Right, exactly.
And that was Mr. Magic. Hey, now, did you ever work? I know you knew the Katz family organization, Joel Katz and all.
I did. He was out of Atlanta for a good stretch. And I did a record, Cat Family Records.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
It was, we did a record I was still in Atlanta. It was, James Anderson was the singer. And it was a fun kind of this guy was kind of like Mitch Ryder in the Detroit Wheels, kind of that rockin' singer. And that was the only record we did on him. But yeah, Joel, I knew Joel back then. I knew him when he used to play tennis.
Yeah.
And
he loved music.
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
Man. Yeah, man.
He took it.
And was a great lawyer.
Took it to the top levels.
He sure did.
Clients he had.
He did, man.
Well, he operated from that level too. And
yeah,
he did.
Yeah, he did.
Now, what about the Lowry Group? Did you know Mr.
Yeah, I did.
Bill?
I did. There were two camps in Atlanta: the Eileen Burns camp and the Bill Lowry camp.
Yeah.
And Bill was such a great publisher.
Yes.
And had, like Ray Stevens actually started in those, and
Billy
Bill
Joe
Anderson,
Royal.
Billy Joe Royal,
Joe South,
yeah, Ray Stevens.
Yeah, it was like he had a great stable of writers and artists, and Atlanta Rhythm Section came out of there, and the great Barry Bailey on guitar, and that was, and I did. He had one group over there, or a duo that they were a few people had worked on some of their records, and so I got the call. Hey, would you cut a couple of sides on them? And I did. Wasn't a big hit, but it was fun. And Bill was a big presence, a big character. Big guy, and everybody loved Bill.
Yeah, I loved him. He was really encouraging in the beginning. He was a disc jockey on WEAS in Decatur one time before he became a publisher, and he encouraged me a lot. He told me at one point, says, you should go to Nashville, and for what you're trying to do. And I didn't obey him in the beginning, but I always had that in the back of my mind because I respected him so much. And he also had Bertie Higgins. And,
that's right.
Big record. Tommy Rowe.
Atlanta Rhythm Section.
That's right. Yeah. Well, one of the things that you and he have very much in common, you'd give somebody a shot. You'd say, I'm going to give you a shot.
Yeah.
Why don't you try that? You were big on that.
I was.
Yep.
I was.
And it's just like, and the one thing that always sticks in my mind, and I've said this as many times as you've said the other quote, and I truly believe this town, and basically any town, will never see an A&R mind and a presence like yours, because you didn't put it up to committee or ask 100 different opinions to form yours. You'd hear the music, you'd hear the act, and say, I like that. I'm going to sign that. And the row of things that you signed that were also successful.
Some of them were. Yeah.
Well, nobody knocks
A little bit.
100, but the ones,
not all of them.
But let's start the list. Billy Ray, KT.
I appreciate that.
Kershaw.
Yeah. Shania,
Shania,
Billy Ray,
Toby.
Kentucky Headhunters.
I mean, nobody's ever. And these were not just all of the same type of thing. It was.
They were a little different.
They were different, and it was just
nobody's.
I bet you like to hear something you've never heard before.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they weren't just.
They were every one of them were trendsetters. They didn't just have a hit and have one again.
I mean, to come off of some of the country things that you were working with and sign Kentucky Headhunters, that's like from here to there. Yeah. Both worked, both great, both different. Mm-hmm. You just, whatever moved you, whatever. What was the quote when you guys went up and saw Billy Ray at the club and he said, I think I just signed Elvis.
Oh, no, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I wasn't there. He had gone.
I think it's Elvis,
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And
well, it was different.
It was different, and you were really very close.
And I had never seen that kind of audience reaction except one time in my life, and that was
Elvis
at the Fox Theater in 57.
Really?
Elvis was just leaving the Louisiana Hayride and had Heartbreak Hotel. And I was so amazed. I was working at a radio station where I'm from at the time, and we went to see Elvis, and it just blew me away.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Hey, I was going to, real quick, throw something back at Ed real quick, and I think you'll remember this. So in 1993, I think it was, we remodeled the music mill. We got 2 new consoles for A and B. We got Ed the API Legacy for his room in B. And then we got the Focusrite in A. And we bought 2 48-track Sony machines, digital machines. They were brand new. We bought them from the...
32-track.
48s. They were 48s. The Sonys were 48s.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Mitsubishis were 32. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So we get these 48-track tap machines. They were $250. I'm telling this for a reason. They were $250,000 a piece. We got a break. We got them for $175 because they were from the AES show. They'd already had them out here, and we got them. That's how expensive it was back then. We get these tape machines in. Now, you were the first guy to have the Mitsubishi 32s in town, too. Right. Before that sounded great. Ed had one. They sounded great. We're moving to 48. We're all excited. Ed's excited. Ed tells me that the reels go 35 miles an hour. which was a big deal because when you're recording with tape, you get a vocal, you want to go back and start again, you hit it and it rewind and take a minute to get back.
Yeah.
The Sony's and you're back and ready to go. It was the greatest thing. We get those machines in. We have them there the first day. Now, you're at the label, I'm at the music mill, and I'm freaking out because we're spending so much money all the time, as you remember. But we got the machines in, everything's ready to go, we're rocking. And Ed buzzes me the first day he's working on the 48-track tape machine and says, "This thing sounds like shit." And I said, "What?" He said, "It sounds terrible. Come down here." So I went down and he said, "Watch this." And he recorded a thing on the Mitsubishi and on the 48, and we listened, and I could hear the difference. He said, "I'm telling you." Ed would do this. "Ed, I'm telling you." So we called Sony. We called Sony. I'm going, $175,000. Anyway, we call Sony, and the guys, he's on the phone with them, and they're going back and forth trying to translate and whatnot. Finally, they send guys in to check it out, and by this time, he and Todd have recorded a sine wave on our little Sony DAT machine.
DAT machine.
And played it back.
Yeah.
The home unit, we had DAT machines back. They were digital audio tape. They were like cassette decks but digital.
Yeah.
And we're looking at back on the oscilloscope. Looks pretty, and he plays it back off one track of the Sony 48 track, and it looks like some kind of weird square.
A weird Christmas tree
It's all
sideways.
weird looking. So the Sony guys fly in. It's a big deal, and it's awful. And he's not using the machine we just paid all that money for. And I said, "Don't tell anybody that," because people go, Anyway, they come in. They go, "He's right. This looks terrible." And so it turns out that the Sony professional guys in those days, and nobody had noticed it. People were getting those machines all over the country. We just had the first ones in Nashville. He was the only guy that noticed it. So the Sony guys come in, do all this research, and they find out that the Sony professional guys that do all the professional recording gear don't talk to the guys that do the home gear.
Mm-hmm.
And the home stuff, they were different AD converters.
And rivals.
That's
were
right.
rivals.
So Sony came up with a mod. We were the first ones to get it. They put it on our machines to fix it, thanks to Ed Seay. And for years, if you bought a Sony 48 track, the first thing you asked was, "Does it have the mod?" Yeah. That was Ed Seay.
That was me.
I was there.
Wow, what about that?
And it made it sound so much better.
You can imagine how excited I was thinking
yeah.
that our 48-track machines were going to be doorstops. But anyway,
no,
that's a true story.
I knew you were there for a reason.
It wasn't me. Yeah, I was just worried. He's the guy that did it.
Well, no, I was worried too because I know that was a lot of money. Those and you got a deal on them because they were more expensive.
Yeah,
I mean, they were really, but they were great.
They were.
And but so that was a weird thing. But yeah, what had happened was the two Japanese guys, Consumer and Pro, were there, and they saw it, and they looked at each other, and Mike Porter was working at Sony, and so they said, "Thank you," very politely, and they got in the car. Porter says, there was silence in the car, and he said, "You know what's wrong, don't you?" And they went, "Yes, we'll fix it." And what it was building these machines, the electronics. They got to a crossroads. Do we want a little faster throughput, or do we want better sound? And so the DAT players chose better sound, and the pros chose faster throughput. Because,
I didn't remember that.
And so then they did whatever they did. Mm-hmm. Guy came down, and lo and behold, it sounded great. And so then for then, the Music Mill was the only studios that had the best sounding 33 48s on Earth.
First at the Music Mill. Yeah, man, that was a scary moment for a little while. We just invested all that money. Oh my God! But it worked out good in the end.
All of that was such a great journey, and
a great time.
We were talking about that yesterday, and the very. It's really technical now. It's way beyond what I can comprehend. But the first thing out of the ordinary we ever had was a harmonizer. You remember a harmonizer?
Oh yeah.
And I had brought from broadcasting the old Ampex 601, so we had 3 different types of echoes. Mm-hmm. Had 2 plates and a live chamber, and we could, with the harmonizer, could manipulate a few little things and do things. So it was really, really a great journey to go from that to a 64-track Focusrite and have all of this, the EMT 250s, that the Bee Gees made so famous, and all of that stuff. And
those brand new, they were $18,000.
Guys like you that could take it and take it on to the ultimate. It was a great thing.
It was great times. And every time I drive by that building, and
Me too.
I think about it every
too.
time.
And
Best times of my life.
and another thing, in addition to having people or access to people like Ed, we had Russ and guys, even the backup guys, Todd and Graham Smith and George Clinton and Butch Carr and all of these guys that were so talented, and what a pleasure it was,
It was the place, man.
Another thing that was pleasurable and fun was the parties that you would throw at the end of the year at what was the name of that?
Well, the last one was Union Station.
Union Station.
We were talking about that.
Yeah, Union
yesterday.
Station. Yeah, those were great.
Yeah. Even at 94, I still like parties. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Still can't sing or play a mandolin, but I like parties.
Oh, that's
Do you
funny.
remember
man.
when you first met Harold? How you guys got together?
I met Ed really through
think his
Russ.
phone's ringing.
Did you know that Mike
Russ
before?
They were buddies before Ed and I actually met. I think.
We were, yeah, but I heard you might have met him before.
I'm not
Well,
sure.
I think
but
I did meet him, but I don't really remember that.
I just remember a meeting that we had up in your office, and I had it probably was set up through you, I guess, and it was like I'd been hitting a few licks around, and of course knew about Harold. Everybody knew about Harold Shedd, and so we sat had a meeting, and lo and behold, we started working on some records together. That was, I'm with you on that Davis Daniel. That should have happened.
It should have happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, man.
Well, there were 2 or 3 hits on there, really.
Yeah.
man.
I know a place should have been
I think so,
a
too.
huge record.
I think
That
so,
I'm not
too.
listening
And probably
anymore was
would
cool,
be
too.
now, with the way things are. I don't think it's dead by any means, but you'd have to go back and figure out an approach. But there were some things that you did that somebody someday should hear,
I really wonder, is that stuff on Spotify? I haven't.
I don't know.
I don't know that.
I think maybe it is. I think I looked it up here recently.
I don't know that.
Yeah. Man, yeah, when they put that first single out on Davis, it started. Ron Cotton.
It is available because you can request it
Yeah.
and pull it up.
I think it is. Ron Cotton was managing him, remember?
Yes.
And he called me and said, "Well, that record's taken off in Texas." And I thought, boy, this is feeling pretty good. And there were a few ads, and that's when everything closed down, wasn't it? When they started closing everything down today.
Well, we were going through big changes at the label. It was not. The timing was not good. New people coming in, and
That happens.
So it wasn't the music. I
new
don't
people.
think.
They bring their own ideas.
Yeah, they don't want to get there and make one of their stepchildren now look good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make my stuff look good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they did that.
Yeah.
They.
Good way.
Well, we were talking about that yesterday too. They, Toby made an album. They didn't think it was a hit on it, and it sold 10 million records.
After he took it to DreamWorks, yeah.
Yeah.
James Stroud got hold of it.
Yeah.
Again.
Another.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same way with his demo tape, right? Didn't
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tell him about that. The demo tape that you
About how
got,
you got
had 5
Toby?
songs on it.
Yeah.
And everybody told him.
Toby. Yeah. Well, actually, a major label, a couple of them told him he couldn't write or sing.
Ooh.
And
On his
a
first
flight
demo.
attendant she came up to me on a flight back, and I'm repeating stuff.
Yeah.
That's
now.
okay, though.
I don't mean to do that.
Oh.
But
I hadn't
anyway,
heard
so she says, Roger Miller says, "Are you think you are?" I said, "Yeah." And, so she says, "I have a friend that sings." Well, you've heard that. Everybody's got a friend that sings. I said, "Have him send me a tape." She says, "Well, I'm a big fan," and he played this college when I was going to school in Las Cruces, and I happened to have one of his original demo tapes. And so she gave it to me, and I got back to Nashville, and it was a cassette. That's how far back that goes. So I inserted the cassette, and the first song that came up was Should Have Been a Cowboy, you know. That's been played over 7 million times now. It's just unreal. And 5 songs on the cassette, 3 of them were number ones, the other 2 were top 5s. And this is a guy. See, but it was not, it didn't sound like the radio, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Had
I
it
think
been
that
pitched
was
around, had
one of
people,
the
other people heard
advantages
it?
I had. I was looking for something I had not heard on the radio. So.
Right.
Pretty much everybody in Nashville had
Oh,
heard that
everybody
tape.
had passed. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
one guy-
label told him that he couldn't sing or write. Just go back.
See,
up
that, once again, that's a case of I don't care what everybody thinks. I care what my gut tells me.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And that has always led you right.
Yep.
Always.
It led me right, you know, and made
Russ
me.
says all the time that's the only thing that Harold signed was everybody called him crazy every time.
Yeah, well, it's like
Yeah.
we've talked about, and you'll remember this. Excuse me. In those days, there'd be acts come to town on a regular basis, and you hear everybody's fighting over them. Everybody wants to sign them. And I told Harold, I said, you know, it's sort of like a girl that won't go out with you. You know, for him, everything he signed, nobody wanted. Nobody else gave a shit about. You know, they were never fighting over the acts. They were calling me going, well, he's lost his mind this time. I heard that more times than I can tell you. You know, Billy Ray.
But you
Kentucky
hit
Osborne.
Yeah.
excuse me, you nailed it a few minutes ago when you said, you know, if it hits you, pay attention to that. And this is not about me, but I'll repeat this story again, because the headhunters, I'd gone to Douglas Corner to see another guy in the round, you know, and it was not what it was good, but it wasn't something I was looking for. And as we started to leave, Larry Shell was with me, and the headhunters came through the door, and I said, Larry, I want to hear this band. Let's do it. So he was a little amazed, and even to the point he said, why do you want to hear them? I said, it's the ugliest band I've ever seen, first of all. But they got on stage and they opened up with The Only Daddy That'll Walk the Line. And no one of them said a word yet. And they segued right into Walk Softly on His Heart of Mine.
Okay.
And he got to the chorus. It hit me like you're talking about. And I turned to my good buddy. I said, I'm going to sign this band. I didn't know them. I'd never heard of them. And they had 8 sides recorded, and they were equally that impressive. You know, they had taken Old Lonesome Me and made it into, and Don Gibson was so happy. And
Oh, yeah.
and
Dumas Walker.
That's it. Dumas Walker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy, man.
Yeah. But it was a spur of the moment thing, you know. It just happened to be there. But
Isn't that great? I mean, that's another.
That's what
good-
I love about the business so much, you know. And fortunately, at that time, I had just gone to Mercury a short time, about a year earlier, I guess, and I was able to give them that opportunity that we were talking about. And
Yeah.
And they'd been trying for what?
they'd been
11
trying for
years?
a year.
Yeah.
They had cut 8 sides. So I asked Richard how much money they had invested. He said $25,000. And well, that's not much money for 8 sides,
No.
you know, like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that good. And so I said, well, I'll buy it from you, and then I'll give you $20,000 to do 2 more songs. And they did, and that's how all that started.
Wow.
And I had
It's incredible.
$45,000 in the album. and it sold 3 million right out the door at $8 a piece. You know.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's the fun part of this business.
Yeah, and being in a position to do that and give somebody that opportunity, and have people around you that's so good, you know, like yourself and Russ, and we had another dozen or so people that you could really rely on, and it made it all really worthwhile.
And boy, just the synergy, like you talked, time you go by that building, the synergy in that building and the fun. I mean, I can remember, you know, bopping out of my office and stopping in and seeing Ed and B and hearing some cool record going on before anybody ever heard it. Then going to A and Joe and Jim be working on something or some great new song. You know, I've told the story, but you and Joe and Jim always heard my latest demos. Y'all be working on Saturdays. I'd come across 805 and play you stuff. And so y'all knew about songs before anybody did the same thing. You were hearing what I was doing. I was hearing what y'all were doing. I was hearing what he was listening to. It's like, you know, what he was working on.
Yeah, there was a lot of energy in that building.
Yeah,
There
man.
was.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. It was a, you know, and I'm sure it happens today.
Do you have a favorite that you've made?
Boy, that's a tough one.
It is tough, isn't it? You got a lot of favorites.
There's one song that just flashed in my mind, and there's several favorites, but one was I think Tony Hazelton was on this. That's my story. And I'm sticking to it by Colin Ray.
Yeah. Colin Ray.
And
a great
that was
record,
just a
man.
cool record and a fun thing, and
a cool song and all.
That was Tony, I think.
And he sang it. It really, really fit him.
You know, he and Leroy wrote that song. We were talking about that song recently because when they wrote that song, we had that song.
Tony and Leroy.
Oh,
okay.
And they had written another song together, and we demoed them both the same day. And so, of course, Leroy had a record deal. So he went over to play them both for Tim. And I thought, you know, because I had a bunch of ideas on where to go with That's My Story. I mean, I just really thought it was it. The other song was a great song, too, though. So he said, I go play him for Tim first because he may want me to cut him. Mm-hmm. He came back, and Tim had said, I don't think That's My Story will work for us, you know. And I was like, thank you, Jesus.
Good.
Not bad or good.
It'll work for us.
But they were having trouble with Leroy being a little too R&B and want to try to get some stuff. I get what he was doing, you know. But I was like, wow, man, you know, this is, that was and y'all made a record. Oh, it was so good.
Well, it's great when you have a singer that can inspire the players, and they hear that, and everybody's into it. Sometimes the players will tell you in confidence that I just had to turn the vocal off on that because it was like they were singing so bad or whatever. But on some sessions, you know, but when you have somebody like that can deliver it, you know, and it's exciting, and that was a fun record. There's been so many, and it's just hard to say, but that one, it was just so exciting. I have a friend that always brings up that record.
Oh,
you know,
that was a good one, man.
When they
those first two Martine McBride records are really good too. I mean, because I knew them inside out.
Yeah.
I thought those sounded good. You know, some of those Desert Rose Band records were cool too. I liked a couple of those.
Yeah,
those were fun records. We were the only one on MCA that were. John Jorgensen was the guitar player in that group, the Desert Rose Band. It was the only band that one was a MCA Curb record, but it was the only record on MCA that was using real amplifiers, because at that point the MCA president was saying, no, it's all got to be direct, you know, so everybody was using direct guitars, and Jorgensen was the old school, go into the guitar amp, and you know, and that was fun. Chris Hillman, who was a mandolin player as well, and guitar player, but he was the singer. He was in the Byrds, and so the Byrds were one of my heroes, you know. So I became good friends with him, so those were fun records.
You know, the first cut we got with Tony Hazel when we signed him. First cut, you don't
was
even
he
know
with the? Was Chris ever with the Eagles?
He was with the Burrito Brothers.
Burrito Brothers.
The Burrito Brothers, and he was. All those guys were kind of in that same loop.
Yeah.
Souther Hillman Furay band.
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Chris Hillman, he was good. He was,
Yeah, really good. I was going to say the first cut we ever got on Tony Hazelton was Ed Seay did. You don't even know this.
That's me? What was it?
No.
What?
Before that, Marie Osmond,
Marie?
All in Love. Remember
Really?
that one? That was the title of the album.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was the first one.
You know, that record, the first number one record I mixed in Nashville was on Marie, and it was There's No Stopping Your Heart.
Oh yeah,
and
good record.
And it really popped. The mix was really, and she was singing good, and I mixed that, and it went to number one. And that was kind of like, and if you remember back then, cassette days, there was normal players, a lot of different players, but there was a Nakamichi player. If you played it on a Nakamichi and recorded it on the Nakamichi, it sounded great. If you recorded on Nakamichi and played on anything else, it sounded like this.
Yeah.
So I almost didn't get the mix approved. They listened to it and it was like, this sounds awful. And so then I made another copy and they played it on another, and then it sounded good. So, but that was Marie, and so All in Love.
Mm-hmm. You mixed that record. I thought you produced it too, didn't you, with Paul?
Maybe.
It was the title of the album. I don't know what the single was. We didn't get a single because Tony was.
Was that the early '80s album?
No, late '80s.
Meet Me in Montana.
No, it wasn't that one. I don't think the album did that good actually, but that was the title. And there was a single off of it, but Tony was convinced it was his first cut. And he and Julia came up here and started looking for houses, in Nashville, and that record, and they didn't pick it as a single. And Tony said, "I'm going back home now." I said, "No, wait a minute. We got the Shenandoah cut like 2 weeks later, and he stayed and everything." So,
what was that? Mama Knows?
Mama Knows.
Oh yeah.
He was convinced that Marie Osmond record, and we all thought it was a cool record, man. You know how you get.
Yeah.
You think, well, ours is the best.
Timing.
Yeah, timing's everything, as they say.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's funny. Oh well. We already asked him what his favorite record was he mixed.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
What was the most complex that gave you the most fits trying to get it right?
Well, one of the hardest was they laughed at me over at Treasure Isle because they didn't have automation. They had a Trident console, sounded great and everything good. I had my gear in there.
And so for anybody that doesn't know, automation is you got 24 faders here, you say, and you got to move stuff while it's being mixed. And if you don't have enough hands or automation where it'll move for you after you record.
Exactly right. That's and like when it was 4-track or 8-track, and I started when it was 16-track. With 16, you could perform that. You could kind of but 24 or 32 or 48 tracks. Anyway, we were working on it was a Marie Osmond record at Treasure Isle. They didn't have automation. And I needed the toms, doom, doom, doom. They say, with automation, you push them up once, doom, 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 and then they're going to do that every time. Otherwise, you leave them where they are, and they go, nobody hears them. Or if you leave them up too loud, then it doesn't sound right. All the drum trash is in there. So anyway, those kind of moves, and it took me 3 days to try to mix that record. It was just a normal record if I'd had automation, and they were laughing at me because I was having to cut, splice stuff together. And so right after that, I said, got to find another studio that has automation,
Yeah.
And but that one was hard just because I didn't have enough hands, and it required several things because when you mix, you actually either recreate or reinvent the dynamics, because a lot of times the players are listening to themselves or the click track or whatever, and it's not their mix in the phones is not ultimately the mix. That's one of the things that was good about the way old days actually that we remember, but they moved on from there, was like just a headphone box with two knobs, left ear, right ear. What you were hearing was what we were hearing. Everybody was on the same audio page, so to speak. But now with more me's, it's good and bad, because then the singer says, I can't hear myself. Well, okay, give you a fader. The acoustic player said, I can't play any louder. I can't hear myself. Give him one. So then everybody's got a more me, so everybody turns themselves up, and they sound, boy, I sound great to me. but nobody's listening to anybody else, and it
Right.
just sounds like a jam or something. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's true.
it's just one of the technical weirdnesses. And I never was Mr. Tech. I was a musician that learned how to work the studio, you know. But
That's a good thing.
But it was a good thing for me because it's, you know.
You know, I remember we were working with this act.
Russ is a technician.
A little bit.
He's real smart.
We were,
Yeah, you were.
producing a record with Doug Johnson, Tony, and I on this group called the Wilkinsons.
Mm-hmm.
Ed engineered all the stuff, mixed it, and we were cutting this song that went on to be a big record. Got nominated for Grammys. Was their biggest record, and somebody had the idea to put an auto harp on it, and we wanted them, you know, downbeats.
Ring.
Da, 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 bring,
Ring.
da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da. And so somebody found the world champion or the state champion auto harp player.
Will Lee or
Will
some-
Smith.
Will Smith. That's it.
Because Rodney said he couldn't get jiggy with it, remember?
Oh, that's right.
So he comes in, and this guy, we said, okay, here's what we want you to play. He didn't know anything about a chart. And he said, what is it? We said, you know, just play the downbeats on the intro, you know, on each bar. And so we got it. Yeah, okay. So he had his record, and the guy starts dancing around, just playing like crazy.
And going, ring, ring.
Ding, 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 and stop, you know. And Ed's got a lot of virtue. Sometimes patience is one of them. So anyway, we started again. And he kept doing that. And Ed said, no, just here. And he pointed out to him. So finally, after about an hour and a half, he said, here's what we're going to do. He said, go stand there. I said, I'm not going to play music. Give me a G chord and let it ring.
Ring.
And he recorded it. Okay, give me an A.
Ring.
And we had him do like all the chords we were going to need for the song and then send him home, and Ed just flew him around. We caught him flying around everywhere. So anyway, because it had been such a headache and kind of a funny thing when we did it, when we mixed this record, and the label wanted this record real bad because they wanted it out in a hurry because they wanted the single out for Mother's Day. It was a song about a girl leaving home and her mother and the whole thing. So we're working night and day on that record. As a matter of fact, Ed lives south of town, taking about 30 minutes to get home every night. We worked so late, he rented a hotel down there
room
for 3 weeks
so
so we
I
have to
could
leave.
get a little extra time on.
So we're all tired, and we're getting ready to close the first mix and get parts for it and get ready to get out for the first single. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We're getting ready to go in and close the mix out with Ed. And we come in, and Ed's playing the mix, and all of a sudden I'm hearing some out-of-tune stuff, you know, and can't tell what it is. And I said, I heard something there. And Doug was there, of course. Of course, he was running a record company. He was just dead, you know. He put all these nuggets in the wrong place on purpose to mess us up. On this final mix, we're all like this. Anyway, 'cause we're race. and Doug, not being as familiar with all the digital stuff we could do at the time, we finally figured it out because I said, it's right there again. Ed said, you found it, and pulled it up. And Doug goes, I said, oh, that's funny. And Doug said, I think he just screwed our record up. Remember that?
Yeah, it was sounding good. Sounding good. And I thought I had put a few booby traps in there. Easy to take. Yeah, it was
That was so much
permanent.
fun. I mean, we had more fun doing that stuff. You know, it's worn out, tired, can't move. We're going so many hours, and here's a joke to prolong the misery for another hour. You know. So anyway, fun stuff.
Ed, do you prefer mixing your own production or taking and making something out of something someone else did?
They both can be fun. I like mixing my stuff because I know where the bodies are buried, where everything is, and it's sometimes mixing somebody else's stuff. If it's well recorded and well arranged, then it's like I'm just met a new friend here on the console.
Okay.
However, if it's not arranged good and they leave you 8 solos and they say, "Well, you pick," and that's like, then it's like meeting a not so good friend. You know?
Yeah. It becomes a real challenge then.
Yeah, then it's like, well, I mean,
your mind gets off on something else. Yeah.
And I have to go. Sometimes you got to go into repair mode and say, well, this doesn't sound right at all. So
Yeah.
and then it's tricky because they wanted to kind of, hit up. They wanted to bring this in a timely fashion and a budget point, and there's too much to fix to get it to hit that, price, speed, quality, pick any two,
Yeah.
And so they wanted it quick and they wanted it great, but that means the quality's not going to be, so
Right.
it can be tough, but yeah, normally if it's fun to mix something that's well done,
Right.
Yeah.
and hopefully if I've done it, I can work with that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Now,
Well, you've seen. I'm sorry,
Well,
Russ.
I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you guys work together probably most recently on the that Alabama stuff, right?
Yeah.
Y'all did together.
Yeah. You know, there was one of those songs that I'd mixed, and I remember the vocal. I had worked on the vocal, and I had compressed the vocal up, and so he comes in and sitting there listening,
Who's
and
he?
you know,
Randy.
Randy Owens.
Randy, yeah.
And so he was sitting there, and I'd compressed it up, and you know, when he was singing, he would do a lot of, and I wasn't aware of it because I didn't work a whole lot with Alabama. A lot of sing along, yeah, and all these little grunts and groans and crackles, and so my compression had pulled that up. And so he's sitting there listening. He turns to me and says, "I like how you left all those mouth noises in there," and he said, "That sells records, you know." And I said, "Yeah, how can I say no? They sold 80 million records. I mean, yeah, I guess that's what it was." So,
Yeah.
He sounds pretty good.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was great.
And the odd, if there is such a thing, not normal, but we cut the track until Randy was happy with his vocal.
That's right.
So
That's right.
that was an interesting concept.
Yeah. The players may have said, "Oh man, I was really good to take before."
Yes, yeah.
Didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
Yeah. Randy, if Randy didn't get his right, then it
Yeah.
wasn't right.
And
And Elvis did the same thing.
Yeah.
He would, because I've heard some of those tapes from RCAB over there, and they'd run it until, you know. And Elvis he knew what.
And now we were talking about that yesterday. Now you could change that. You could keep your best track and
pull
move
in
the
your best-
vocal.
yeah.
But
Yep.
That's true.
couldn't
Not
do
so
it
easy back then. Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Now, where do you've seen all the changes and been involved in all the new and the unusual and the technical and the musical part of all of it. Where do you see, especially the country music thing, going?
Good question.
Technically, where it has been going is, and I guess this kind of carries over to a lot of the recorded music, pop anyway, R&B, or hip hop and all. A lot of it is in the box, what they call in the box. They don't use real drummers. They don't use real guitar players. They may use a guitar player. They don't use real keyboard. I mean, I say real. There's virtual instruments where you can call up a doom doom, kop doom doom, and there's no drummer there, and so it's virtual instruments making the music, as opposed to the way we grew up, where there was a room full of players, and everybody, I'm playing, you're playing, and I hear what you're playing, and I jump on that, and I'd do something that worked with that, and then you change yours because that gives you an idea. And we've sort of gotten away from that over the past 10 years to where a lot of it is in the box, so to speak, or virtual instruments. I see some of it coming back. There's a real big artist, modern country artist, that 2 albums ago, everything was in the box, and then everybody was chasing him because he was successful. And then on his next album, he said, "Okay, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to put real players out there. We're going to do it the old way." And so then everybody started chasing that because they figure, well, he must know. But I think, and some people still do that. And there's an energy you get that you don't get any other way when there's people in the room. And is it a little slow? Should we bump up the tempo, or is this key right? For, you don't get that if it's all programmed. But if it's a great song and a great singer, it can win either way. But I think I'm kind of seeing it go back a little bit to real players again.
Wow.
Just a little bit.
I think so.
I mean, there's something that happens that is just can be magic, and we all remember those magic moments when you're in the studio.
Magic moments. Yeah.
You know, I think part of that is the collaboration between the players and
Yes.
the producer and anybody in
Yes.
the room saying,
Yes.
"Hey, let's do that. Hey, you're going to play that. I'll play this," as
Yes.
opposed to one person playing one thing then add another and
That's
another.
right. Exactly
You know, I
right.
think
That's exactly what it is.
yeah, that's
The songwriter writes the song, the producer has ideas, the guitar player tries his thing, and it's like, that's really good. Yeah, that's one thing into that. Let's go there. And, you know, I think at some point people realize, the smart ones anyway, that you don't have to have all of the answers. You just have to know some people that do have some of
Right.
the answers. I don't know everything about that, but hey, I know a guy.
Yeah.
You're the guy, and then we can, you know, take mine and add yours, and it just can become something bigger than it walked in the door.
Yeah.
like.
That's it.
Yeah. You know, interesting enough, one other thing, too, you know, you talk about the old days with tape and stuff. You know, learn how to edit, mark stuff. You know, how many times did you take a razor blade and you and me and everybody? I think those kind of things, seeing it at that level, make you think differently. Even when you're recording, doing stuff, and you hear something, we could do this, or we could cut that there. You know, not that it matters today, but I think it makes you think differently. All those things, you know.
Well,
you talk about.
everyone is a goal
Yep.
you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think too, people, you had to make decisions back then because you only had one track left. Well, I gotta add that guitar part. Well, or I don't have any guitar. Well, we got to go over the old one. No, I swear this is better. Okay, here we go. I hope it's better. You know,
Sometimes it was.
sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. But you had to make a decision. You had to have a vision, and you had to try to keep to it. Now you can wait till the very end for your decision making, and it can be there's no decision made until you know. That's not. I think that's part of the good thing, where people had to think ahead and be ready. Had to have a game plan. You know, even if you were going to modify it some.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And on the other hand, being able to make that choice later sometimes is better
It's
too.
great.
You know, technology is great.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
anti.
Well, no, I know. That's what we're saying. Back and
Absolutely.
forth, sure.
That's
Yeah.
true. A lot of times when you in the heat of the battle, you're going for these tracks, and you get down and you hear this thing that's not good, and I didn't hear that. Did you? No. Well, let's see what he did on the take before, or the take two back. Oh, it's great there.
Yeah.
Let's pop that one in. So that's a time saver and a creative bonus, you know.
It is.
Yeah, man.
Basically, we make records these days, and it's been this way for 25 years. It's not a new thing, 30 maybe. But we make it kind of like a live show is kind of like Broadway. A live musical performance is like a live Broadway performance. It is what it is, and that's what it is. Making a record is like making a movie, where the singer is going to come in and sing his part, and man, yesterday you did it differently or better, or earlier today you did it, and you can take that. It's like record that scene, or we tried some backgrounds. They weren't very good. Let's get somebody else. Yeah, I know a guy. Let's try that. So you can take those off and put those on, and it's making a movie basically, and making an audio movie, which is just a different way, but the way the movies have been made.
Modify the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Excuse me.
You really pick it up when you're listening to an audiobook, because you can hear at the end of the day, and then all of a sudden they start the next chapter, and it's like a different person.
Yeah, his voice is all sanded down by the end.
Yeah.
And now it's fresh again.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's true. That's absolutely true. That's fun.
Excuse me.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So do you think lyrically, generally speaking, that the songs could be better now? You think there's
I do.
some slippage maybe in
I think
the
there is.
depth of what people are writing?
I do, and I think most people that remember back 20 years would agree. I hear a lot of people say, and not to just sound like, oh, in my day it was better, but when you had, first of all, we're lucky in Nashville. There's other cities, but we've got the best songwriters in the world.
Absolutely.
And this is the biggest publishing town in the world. We've got the best resources for that, and a lot of times it seems like I hear melodically that a lot of the new songs don't seem to have the great melodies, and some of the lyrics aren't as good as it seems like some of these great songwriters would craft these lyrics. And there's some exceptions, of course. There's some great ones, but I think that's mostly the complaint I'm hearing, that while some of the songs are great, a lot of the songs aren't great. And I think the barometer is, will you be singing that song or hearing that song next year, 10 years, 20 years from now?
Right.
We're still doing that with some of the great, songs. And
will you remember it?
Will you remember it?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I've said it before, but I think that has a lot to do with, the fact there really isn't A&R anymore. And there are people, I'm sure, in town that would argue, and I that's kind of a general statement, but, it used to be that there were gatekeepers and aggregators, we said, like Harold, that would pick stuff and say, whether anybody got it or not, it didn't matter. Today, it's when they sign artists today, they have to have numbers and stuff going on already. And we know how fickle the public can be if they're picking. So, it's it starts with a number. They got this many streams, and they got this much going, their Instagram followers and everything. And so we're going to put this out and promote that, as opposed to something that's over here that,
The first time I ran into that was with you. We had done one of your demos, and 2 or 3 of the songs just came out great, and the vocal was great. And so I mixed them up, and we took them to at the time a fellow that was sitting behind the desk, and we walked in the door, and I said, this singer kind of has that. He's got the airy thing, but also the tone thing. And I was explaining the vocal and trying to engage him in. And he said, "What are his numbers? How about his Facebook? How about Instagram?" And started to look at all that stuff you're just talking about. It was like, does it even matter that he looks great and sings great and writes great? Doesn't that matter anymore? It really didn't to him.
Yeah.
Or at least the first thing he wanted to know was the numbers, the social media.
Sure.
How's that?
Sure.
I'm sure that's some of the validity of what is going on now, but it's like,
well, it goes back to that thing.
He was a marketing guy in the wrong office.
Yeah.
That's right.
But again, it's what the social media numbers are, and then everybody wants it.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like the old days, doesn't it? When everybody, those things we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. Well, nobody wants this one. Who would do that one? Mm-hmm. Because he loves it. That's why. So again, I think that's some of what's missing. And again,
that's what I tell Russ. I always use Russ, and he was such a great ally.
Well,
and
if you listen to the public,
Russ, do you like this? And he'd say, "Can't get that on the radio." I said, "I know, but do you like it? Do you love it?"
Yep.
And that's what
Yep.
That's what matters. Do you like it?
Yep.
Speaking of that, I remember Shelley and I walked into your office, and we were looking for songs. We'd already cut some stuff, and we found some more songs, and there was one we were pretty high on, and it wasn't really a country-sounding thing. And Shelley and I play it for you. Said, "We won't check this out." You listened, and you said, knowing that it wasn't that country, and you said, "Well, people are going to hear that and say, that's a pretty great song." Because it was. It wasn't the country thing that was going, but it was a great song.
No labels. That's a good thing too.
Yep.
If you listen, if you base everything off public opinion, you'll never have anything.
That's right.
That's why you get Caesar salads at McDonald's menu.
Yep.
If you listen to everything that everybody has to say, it's always mediocre.
That was some of the good days of radio in the beginning. I don't mean to live in the past, but when I first started in radio, you selected your own music, what you were going to play for the next 2 or 3 hours, and it was block programming. In 3 hours, it changed to another kind of music, and then another 3 hours, it became big bands and all that. But you could actually communicate with your audience more, and you could find out, and they would tell you why they liked a certain song, and you would be amazed at what they did like. Sometimes they love the music, you know, sometimes they love the melody, and sometimes it was the lyrics. So if you give them all of that separately to make a decision, it would be impossible. You know, they just wouldn't know which one to keep and which one to leave out. But you put it all together, and they hear it all together, and they love it, and they want to hear it again and again. So from that standpoint, radio was a great teacher in trying to make records, you know.
And radio has changed drastically.
It has. Yeah.
These days.
Yeah, it's a different animal now.
Yeah.
The whole animals, everything's different about it now, yeah. And not all bad, you know. So
no, it's not all bad.
Yeah.
But the music could be better.
I remember when I was growing up, I was in Marietta, Georgia, WFOM, and there was a DJ up there who used to be, he was like one of the first bass singers, Hugh Jarrett. He was a bass singer for Elvis.
Hugh Baby.
Hugh Baby. He was up there, and he had Hugh Baby's Hopperoonie up on Highway 41, and he had a DJ slot. You know, he was DJ, and he'd be playing a song, and then he'd say, man, I like that talking on the outro. I love that song. Let's back the needle up and hear a little bit more of that. So he'd back it up and drop it in the middle of the record.
Yeah, man.
You had freedom to do that, and radio had a personality like that, you know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, the DJs. And we talked about that several years ago where I grew up in southern Indiana. We had the Louisville radio stations, you know, and there was a guy that we talked to DJs, how fun it was listening to the radio. It was an adventure. The Weird Bear, and he was going on and playing songs, and, you know, he was as big a star as the songs were, you know, and throwing them on there. And you had the guy that maybe I don't think it was you, somebody else you mentioned.
Coyote McLeod.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah. He was you at the top of the hour, he would go into a thing, and, you know, he wasn't the first to do it. I think he probably looked at Wolfman Jack and saw 7 o'clock in the side time, and he would talk right up to the point of the music done, and the vocals started to sing. And it was like so exciting. You never knew what he was going to say.
Yeah.
And back then you had carts. There was all the sound effects, this and that, woo, you know, and he's sitting there talking and hitting those buttons, and it was
exciting.
It was a very exciting.
Yeah, entertaining.
Yeah, man. Yeah. A little more laid back these days, but, you know, all good. Oh, well.
Well, Ed, it's been a great pleasure having you.
Thank you. I'm so glad.
We need one of those sound cars. Woo!
Yeah.
We'll do that in the mix.
Thanks very much. I enjoyed this. It was great. You know, I'm such a fan of you and your legacy and all the things you've done, and it's just it makes me happy to think about those. And like I said, I'll be driving by the music mill again today, and I always think of that stuff.
Well, we hope you have good memories, and
absolutely,
we're grateful.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Behind the Shed. Special thanks to our guests today, Russ Zavitson, Harold Shedd, Wade Smith, and Ed Seay. Behind the Shed podcast was created by Wade Smith, produced by Russ Zavitson and Wade Smith, and recorded in Nashville, Tennessee. Music, written and composed by Russ Zavitson. You can contact the show via email at behindtheshed@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Behind the Shed. Special thanks to our newest Patreon supporter, Mr. Ron Ledette. If you would like to support the show in any way, please visit our Patreon page at Behind the Shed. For sponsorship opportunities, contact us at behindtheshed@gmail.com. This episode was sponsored by PopChevy.com, Wild Bill Fireworks, the Kent Rose Foundation and the HaroldShedMusicGallery.com. Tune in next week as we go behind the shed.